Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, a new gaming bill. Also, culture wars in limbo. And are lawmakers drunk on power?
Say, how many drinks have you had?
This will make 6 martinis.
All right. Will you bring me 5 more martinis? Leo, line them right up here.
Yes, ma'am.
Nah, they just need a little shot to chill. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and today I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, investigative reporter and columnist at APR, and all-around great guy. How you doing?
I'm all right. I like that introduction. Thank you.
Yeah. So your baby, Andy Lou, turned 4 this week.
Yeah,
Happy birthday, sweet girl.
Apparently it only took like a month to get to 4 years old. That's how long it seems to have taken.
It seems like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Seems like just yesterday we were, in the...
Well, we have things to be thankful for, and that's one of them. She's a special child. And we had a couple others. Hagler had his birthday this month.
Yeah. He did.
All right. And I quit having birthdays several years ago, so there you go.
After 21, they don't count anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
No.
and long as, that's right. Hey, very seldom do I tend to agree with Mo Brooks, and I feel good about that. But Mo Brooks has been going around the state warning conservatives, warning Republicans, that one of his opponents, Senate candidate Mike Durant, is actually was recruited and is being funded by a group that basically has a lot of liberal ties. Even they have more liberal Republicans. They some of the backers that back people like Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, and they're tied to Mitch McConnell, and they're also tied to Mitt Romney. Josh, these are not the kind of Republicans that normally vote in Alabama primaries. We got more hardcore than that, right?
Well, yeah. They're probably the Republicans that the Republican Party should start embracing a little bit more before they go completely off the deep end. But no, I also will not say this very often, but Mo Brooks is right. Durant has more closely aligned himself with John McCain and that wing of the party, the sane wing of the party, than he has some of the others. And, to me, that's a good thing. I think you're probably right that a lot of people in a Republican primary where crazy seems to be the call will not appreciate that very much. But, I got to say, and I've said this a couple of different times here lately, Mitt Romney, he's a guy that gets some heat from very, very conservative people. But if we had more people like Mitt Romney, we'd be a lot better off. I don't agree with him on probably 90% of his politics, but he's a thoughtful person. He's a calm and rational person. And I just wish that more people from both sides of the aisle would take up his tact and handle things and issues the way he has.
Well, again, I don't disagree with you on that, but I'm just saying, if you're looking, he's positioned himself, Susan, as a MAGA candidate, and even President Trump, we're told, refers to him as the John McCain candidate.
He does,
and is not fond of Durant. He has not said that publicly, but privately, we understand he said that. It's just unusual. This guy came out of nowhere, and allegedly he was handpicked by this group, More Perfect Union. Fox Business News did a whole expose on them and their deep ties to the McConnells and like I said, Kamala Harris giving to her. So this is not exactly a mega guy or MAGA guy.
And something that has really caught my attention is he's missed voting in 15 out of the last 18 statewide elections. Apparently, over the last 12 years, from the Secretary of State's records, he's not voted one time in a Republican Party primary, not voted one time in a Republican runoff, not voted one time in a legislative race, and has not voted one time in a governor's race. He's missed 15 out of the last 18 statewide elections. Is he going to be an absentee voter or an abstention in the Senate? I mean, is he actually going to vote when he gets up there? That's my question.
I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine that a guy can get the nomination to be the U.S. Senator from Alabama who really has only voted once and for a Republican in Alabama. I mean, I can't imagine a Democrat ever getting that position. So he is kind of like a stealth candidate. Nobody knows anything about him except what he puts on there. He's got a nice story, and that's about it.
Well,
yeah, no, I don't disagree with what you're saying about him, and I think that is kind of a troubling aspect. I found that troubling about Tommy Tuberville as well. The man from Florida, and so. But apparently that doesn't matter to anybody. Your concerns are just lost on the normal voter. It doesn't. You can just roll in here from anywhere and they'll elect you as long as you got an R beside your name.
I guess so. It's just the oddest thing in the world. We saw some polling this week, and I believe this poll looks about right. Done by some serious pollsters, but we're not, you're going to have to trust that we saw it or not trust that we saw it. We don't make up the news here because you can't make this crap up. Yeah. Excuse me. But according to the latest poll, Susan, Governor Kay Ivey, as 60% of Republican voters are saying that they will choose her as opposed to Tim James and Lindy Blanchard. The rest of the crew in that poll don't even break 2%. Lindy Blanchard and Tim James are second and third, but they're just not close to Ivey.
I'm not surprised at all. Ivey's been there. She's got great name recognition. She's done a good job. She's been a commanding leader. So these poll numbers are not surprising to me at all, and I don't think to anybody else, honestly.
I thought she was running against Joe Biden. I didn't know that she was running against anybody else other than Joe Biden.
Well, she is, and her poll numbers are better than Joe Biden's. Of course, somebody tried to tell me the other day Kay Ivey wasn't conservative enough. I was talking to a friend of mine who's an editor in another southern state, and he said, "What do you mean? How do you go right about Kay Ivey? Fall off the earth?"
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yes, I've never thought of her as a liberal myself, so I have those tendencies, but I've never known her to join the club.
Anybody that knows her knows that is so far from the truth.
Not even close. Yeah. Hey, I tell you one interesting thing. We don't have time to get to it. It looks like Jim Ziegler has the best shot of anyone of being Alabama's next Secretary of State, Susan.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Well, we're going to have to leave it right there. Be afraid. Be very afraid. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics.
I'm Donald Trump, and I love Alabama. As many of you know, there are few issues facing our nation as important as election integrity and election fraud. This is why the people of the great state of Alabama must work together to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. So get out, register to vote, and get a photo ID so you can make your voice heard and decide the future of our great country. Thank you.
Lindy Blanchard started out in a trailer in Wetumpka, then succeeded in business. President Trump named her our country's ambassador to Slovenia. Now she's stepping forward to fight for Alabama.
I will use my business experience to create jobs, end vaccine and mask mandates, improve our schools, and restore election security.
Driven by faith, trusted by President Trump, conservative outsider Lindy Blanchard for governor.
My dog Jupiter is frightened when I climb too high, the owl said.
Check for monsters, Daddy.
I did, honey. There are no monsters. You're perfectly safe.
Protect yourself and those you love. Vaccinate now. So you got caught speeding. But this time you got more than a ticket.
What are you in for?
Vehicular homicide.
Stop speeding before speeding stops you. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. You know, this new government speaks. I guess it's always been around, but the legislature, Susan, is trying to pass a legislation that would ban critical race theory being taught in classrooms in public education. But they've decided this really clever move. They're not calling it critical race theory. They're calling it divisive concepts. Yeah. Now, there apparently is some divisiveness over these bills, because one passed in a committee in the Senate, a bill, and then in the House, a bill got knocked down. So these divisive concepts, they seem to have Josh, where's this going? Do you know? Oh,
well, go ahead, Josh, please.
Guys, it seems as though the divisiveness is over the bills themselves. So
exactly.
And listen, I never thought that I would say this, because I've had great disagreements with the man in the past, but all kudos to Mike Ball for finally taking a stand against this nonsense. And he's taken two very public stands against these bills, because he's right. He's completely 100% right, as are the other people in the room that are so totally confused whenever this conversation starts, including the bill's sponsor, who has no idea what the bill actually does or what it's addressing, and why they're bringing it. It's just ridiculous, man. And this idea that we're somehow going to take out of the classroom these divisive concepts, and I assume they're defining divisive ideas as anything that would make, because I know they've done this in other states, anything that makes white people feel uncomfortable, and that's, I just don't know what you're trying to do.
Who was? Go ahead, Susan.
Let me, in their infinite wisdom, enlighten you on what they're saying here. It includes one race, sex, or religion is inherently superior to another race, sex, or religion, and that this state or the United States is inherently racist or sexist.
So we can't. Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. I'm just confused. So
so is everybody else.
We just spent 2 years rewriting the 1901 Constitution to take out the racist language, right? Mm-hmm. And so now we're saying that this state and the United States was never inherently racist. Josh, help me.
Listen, I got to tell you, when you go back and you look at the secession papers of some of the southern states, in which the goal was to declare that white people was a superior Caucasian was a superior race. I got to say, I think that might be inherently racist. I'm just throwing it out there. And
the advertisement for the 1901 Constitution. Don't forget that too.
Yeah, it said
I'm white, and I'm not this thing. I am embarrassed for the people who came before me for what they did. But the only thing that it makes me want to do is to do better than those people. It does not make me want to hate anybody. It does not make me feel shame about the way I live or who I am. It makes me want to do better.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you cannot, and this is the whole thing. They don't even see the irony of making these statements, meanwhile passing, rewriting the Constitution to remove the racist and I would say sexist language as too, because this has been the history. It doesn't mean we're terrible people. No. Jefferson owned slaves. That's a terrible thing. But I can't go back and rewrite the history to whitewash that. So that, people, look, I don't feel bad about what my ancestors did. I feel bad that we had a society that did that. Maybe I'm not saying that expressly right.
No,
it's terrible
we should teach
what they did.
We should teach children this is what happened, and that you shouldn't do that. And I believe kids will know.
You learn.
If we don't teach it, we are definitely going to repeat it, because this is how history works.
Yeah,
We
if you
need
don't teach
unvarnished
it-
history.
Yeah, if you don't teach it, you wind up with statues of slave owners in your town. I mean,
Well, that
that's
would
how
never
it
happen.
happens.
That never happens, Josh. No, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But anyway, it's just not being honest. I think the thing is, these bills are everywhere, and they just are. They are really meant to divide, not.
Yeah, but they're also meant to get election numbers in the primary. Let's be real honest here. They can't get it at CRT, so they keep watering it down, because they stand up. Well, I voted for that, but it wasn't CRT. Now it's something completely different, but it kind of sounds like CRT.
Well, it's just another way of dividing the state, dividing people, literally. And you bring up a good point. How many incumbents, Josh, on the Democratic side or the Republican side are even in jeopardy of losing their seat?
Very, very few. You know, there are some.
140.
Yeah, there are some, challenges from the far right to some of these people, but not even most of those are, nonsensical and have no chance. And so, there are a handful, but there's not many. And listen, this is what you get with gerrymandering. I mean, you've pushed everybody to this where a primary is the only thing that matters, and even in the primary, you can't get anybody in there.
That's the thing, Susan. We've set up a permanent political class. Now, and that's what you have, is a permanent political class. The question for the leadership, who should be helping with this, is do they want the dumbest permanent political class possible? And I just don't think that our leadership really wants that. I think they want
pretty
better
close.
candidates.
So, I mean, they better decide in a hurry.
You're kind of stuck with what they've got at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's you got to do something. Listen, everybody in America should want an independent system of voting, where we're choosing districts based on numbers and raw data and nothing else, and to take the politics out of it, because this is not a way. This is not a way to create a good government. And I don't care who's in charge. It's not a way to create good government.
No, it's not. And these are the type of governments you have in totalitarian states around the world, where there's one leader and there's a permanent political class.
And they don't like to teach history.
Well, they don't like history. Yeah. All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics.
You'll never guess what 400,000 people in the U.S. were using when they crashed their cars last year. No, not this. This. Distracted driving will kill you. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
My dog Jupiter is frightened when I climb too high, the owl said.
Check for monsters, Daddy.
I did, honey. There are no monsters. You're perfectly safe.
Protect yourself and those you love. Vaccinate now.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Josh, as the political sage and philosopher, Yogi Berra said, it's deja vu all over again. We have a new gambling bill. The new gambling bill, almost same as the old gambling bill. It is now passed out of Senate committee. It should be on the floor of the Senate this coming week. I know it's hard to predict things, especially the future, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of like one of my favorite coaches I ever covered while working at the Montgomery Advertiser, L.C. Cole, once said when they hired an old AD at Alabama State, out with the old, in with the old. It's that's kind of the way this is. Although I think the bill's okay. I think the first measure of any bill is whether or not you can pass it, and I think this bill can be passed. It has enough votes to do that. But it's the same essential bill as last year, where you're going to have 5 casinos, the 4 dog track locations that we have, and then an additional site up in Northeast Alabama. You'll have 2 satellite places, casinos, I guess you would call them, where you play electronic games. Those will be in Lowndes and Houston County. You have a statewide lottery, and you have sports gaming that'll be tethered to the casinos. It's basically what we had last year with a few improvements. I think it's overall a pretty good bill. Getting it passed, I think if it actually went to the floor in both houses, and I think it'll go through the Senate like a rocket next week with very few problems. But if it actually made it to the floor in the House, I think it would pass. If they actually held a vote on it, it would pass there, with very little problem. The problem is going to be getting it actually to the floor. I think they face some leadership challenges on that, and we'll see if they can overcome those behind-the-scene things that often keep legislation from actually make it in front of the people to vote on it.
Susan, we've seen this year after year after year, and everyone kind of points the blame at somebody. I mean, Governor Ivey has no say in this bill. This is a constitutional amendment, so it goes to the people. They vote for it. Governor
That's an
Ivey's
important
always
point.
said-
That's one thing I should have mentioned. This is not to pass gambling. This is to give people the opportunity to vote on whether or not they want to gamble.
Exactly. They put 2 bills out there. One is enabling constitutional CA, and this other one is, how it's going to function.
Right.
And that's what we've always wanted to put in front of the people. The governor has no say-so whether this passes. The legislature has no say-so. All they're doing is putting a bill out there and saying, do you want it?
Right. Essentially, with a CA, it goes from the legislature straight to the voter.
Right.
It never crosses the governor's desk.
Right.
Okay. There is no mechanism that it would do that in the way our system works.
Right. And they're just laying out the parameters on which people are allowed to vote. And I just say, let the people vote. If they're trying to hold it up in the House, they don't have any reason to, because the incumbents are going to win. Nobody's going to come out and go, oh my God, you voted for gaming, you're losing. No, because they don't have any. They don't have any competition.
It's a very popular, really with the people now. It's a very popular issue, particularly the economic impact of it, which will be tremendous. I mean, you're talking about nearly $1 billion, nearly $1 billion a year in revenue. A year annually.
A year.
And so that's a huge chunk of money. A lot of it going to scholarships and to education. In addition to that, you're talking about creating somewhere north of 12,000 permanent jobs out of this, and you're doing it in areas: Macon County, Greene County, Northeast in Jackson or DeKalb County, Jefferson County, where they could still use jobs, especially good paying permanent jobs with benefits like they're going to have at these casinos. And so I think it's a popular bill with people is what I'm saying.
It is. And I'm not a big gambling guy, but we already have gambling. It's here. We just don't regulate it like we should. We don't tax it like we should.
Right.
And, someone was saying the other day, well, all the inherent problems that come with gaming, they're already here.
Yeah.
We just don't have a way for the state to pay to help eradicate that.
Right, but we don't have a way to pay for the state to help pay for people that have gambling addictions. They're going to have gambling addictions whether they're here in the state or whether they're traveling to Mississippi. It doesn't matter. But the state itself has no way to heal those ills if we're not getting tax revenue off that.
Right, and I think we've had this long enough. It is really time. I mean, whoever in the House is going to try to hold this up, and that's what we're hearing, should just really, for the betterment of the state, say, once and for all, I would like to go through a session and never have to mention gaming. The other thing that these bills do is they get the gambling money out of the legislature.
Yeah.
You know, it no longer, and this may be one of the problems, Josh, because the lobbyists will start losing money. But there will be no more of this giving money from casinos, from gaming interests.
I believe that's actually in the bill, isn't it?
Yeah, that's part of the deal. No more, you know, because they go to these people and they take their money, and then they're like, well, I'm not sure if I can vote on this time, but they're happily taking their money. Same thing with the lobbyists, though. The lobbyists, they spend $2 to $3 billion every time this comes up on lobbyists. You know, so they have no vested interest in watching this pass.
You're right. We're going to have less money flowing into our elections from gambling interest, and we're going to have probably overall less gambling in the state because of the regulations that will come about from the bill that limits gaming to these locations. So, I mean, overall, we'll actually probably end up with less gaming, but, you know, we'll have options that people think are very, very popular right now.
But it'll be legal gaming, and it'll be taxed and regulated. I want to move on to one thing. We've got about a minute and a half. I got two things, actually. You know, we're talking about systematic racism and all that stuff. Mayor Stephen Reed of Montgomery, what I would think is a minority city in Alabama. Am I correct about that, Josh?
Yes.
They want to change some names that would honor black leaders instead of honoring Klansmen and folks like that. And it's going to cost them $25,000 every time because Steve Marshall and the Alabama legislature has decided that they must keep racist names on streets where there are black-owned businesses and black-owned.
So now we're saying street signs are monuments?
Yeah, that's part of the deal. Historical.
Yeah,
historical street names.
Signs are monuments.
They're not monuments. They're historical names.
Okay, I'm confused. Sorry.
Okay.
I wonder what happens if you just don't pay it.
I don't know, but we're gonna have to leave it right there. We're running out of time. This week, Representative David Wheeler passed away. He was one of the good ones, and he will be missed.